He built a machine that was supposed to capture a force no one else could measure. Mainstream science called it nonsense. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Some of his early experiments were reviewed, and reviewers couldn't fully explain what they were seeing either. That contradiction sat there for decades, mostly ignored. The man was Wilhelm Reich, a psychiatrist trained in Vienna, once respected enough to work alongside Freud. By the 1940s, he was living in rural Maine, convinced he had identified a biological energy running through all living things. He called it orgone. He built devices, orgone accumulators, that he claimed could concentrate this energy and improve human health. He wrote papers, he ran trials, he documented results with the same seriousness he'd once used studying the nervous system. At first, this looks like a simple story. A brilliant man gets one idea wrong and refuses to let it go. That's the easy version. It's also incomplete. Reich didn't start as a fringe figure. He trained in classical psychoanalysis. He published respected work on character structure and muscular tension long before orgone entered the picture. Colleagues took him seriously. Journals published him. The shift wasn't sudden. It built slowly, one interpretation at a time, until the interpretation stopped fitting into any framework his peers recognized. He kept running experiments, kept adjusting the design of his accumulators, kept documenting patient responses he believed were measurable. From the outside, this looked like stubbornness. From his side, it looked like persistence. The same persistence that had worked for him earlier in his career, when pushing past initial skepticism eventually led to recognition. He'd seen resistance turn into acceptance before, so resistance to him wasn't evidence he was wrong. It was just what progress felt like on the way in. That's the part worth sitting with for a second. He wasn't ignoring the pushback. He was reading it through a lens that had served him well in the past, and that lens quietly stopped matching the situation he was actually in. Other researchers of the era tried to replicate his results. Some got inconclusive data. A few got responses that seemed to echo what he described, though never in a way that held up under controlled review. Reich took the inconclusive results as partial confirmation. His critics took the same results as failure to replicate. Same data, two completely different conclusions, and neither side was being obviously irrational. They were working from different standards of what counted as proof. This is where it stops being a story about one eccentric scientist and starts being a story about how belief systems get built and defended. Reich had a theory. Theories create expectations. Expectations shape how ambiguous data gets read. And once a theory has emotional and professional investment behind it, ambiguous data almost never gets read as a warning sign. It gets read as support, however thin. There's a useful comparison here. Think about a person convinced their car has a mechanical problem, even after 3 mechanics say it's fine. Each new noise, each new hesitation while driving gets folded into the original belief. The belief isn't being tested anymore. It's being confirmed, regardless of the actual mechanical state of the car. That's not dishonesty. It's how interpretation works once a conclusion is already in place. The Food and Drug Administration eventually investigated Reich's accumulators, found no scientific basis for the health claims, and issued an injunction against distributing the devices across state lines. Reich violated it. He was prosecuted, and books and materials associated with his work were ordered destroyed. He died in federal prison in 1957. Here's the reframe worth pausing on. The real issue wasn't that Reich lacked intelligence or scientific training. It's that he had built a closed interpretive loop where every outcome, support or contradiction, got processed as confirmation. Once a framework can absorb any result as evidence for itself, it stops being falsifiable. And once something stops being falsifiable, it stops being science, no matter how sincere the person defending it is. This matters beyond one historical case. It's not really about orgone energy. It's about how conviction and evidence can separate from each other slowly, without anyone noticing the exact moment it happened. Reich wasn't a con artist. Most people who study him agree he believed what he was doing. That's arguably the more unsettling detail. Sincerity offered no protection from the pattern at all. Looking at cases like this isn't really about judging one scientist from 70 years ago. It's a way of noticing the same mechanism at a smaller scale, in research, in business decisions, in personal beliefs people hold onto after the original reasoning has quietly stopped applying. The healthy habit isn't more confidence in your position. It's periodically asking what kind of evidence would actually change your mind. If the honest answer is nothing, that's worth noticing, regardless of the subject. None of this requires dramatic self-doubt or scrapping every belief you hold. It's a smaller, steadier practice, checking whether a conclusion is still responding to evidence or whether it's just absorbing everything thrown at it. There's a structured breakdown in the description that walks through how these closed-loop belief patterns show up outside the lab, if you want to look at it further. If this kind of case study is useful to you, subscribing means the next one shows up when it's ready. That's it for this one.